things seem to be heating up when it comes to America's involvement in the Israel-Hamas war. Things have been spilling over, and I've talked over and over again, I think, on this stream about how we've been antagonizing our enemies over there in the Middle East. We've been sending troops over there to where, even our ally Israel said, hey, we don't want them. We're like, okay, and we send them next door. Lots of bad decisions by the Biden administration when it comes to handling this conflict once it brewed. But now we have even more bad news. Of course, there's more context and background, but with this immediate story of what's happening in Iran, this all started 2 days ago. The headline here is from Reuters. 3 U.S. troops killed in Jordan drone strike leaked to Iran. We can read the first few paragraphs here. 3 U.S. service members were killed and at least 34 wounded in a drone attack by Iran-backed militants on U.S. troops in northeastern Jordan near the Syrian border, President Joe Biden and U.S. officials said on Sunday. It is the first deadly strike against U.S. forces since the Israel-Hamas war erupted in October. It marks a major escalation in tensions that have engulfed the Middle East. While we are still gathering the facts of this attack, we know it was carried out by radical Iran-based militant groups operating in Syria and Iraq. And by the way, since that article came out, the group that is backed by Iran has since claimed responsibility for the attack, and the U.S. has since named the service members who were killed in the drone attack. But of course, the natural response is, well, what are you going to do, America? It's the thing everyone's thinking. Now, there were some rumors yesterday that, at midnight or so, Joe Biden was going to announce some sort of military action against Iran. That ended up not happening. And by the time this video goes up, it's very possible that Joe Biden has announced any sort of response. But, he at least has said that he has decided on what he will do. Now, it's actually important to note here that says an Iran-backed group in Iraq said it would suspend attacks on U.S. forces. So I think it's pretty sure that they're already worried about what the reaction from America is going to do. I entirely believe that this is probably a move to try to placate America and be like, hey, we're sorry we killed you guys. We're sorry we killed your soldiers. We're not going to kill any more of them, okay? Please leave us alone. Pretty please. I'm pretty sure that that's what the Iran-backed group was thinking when they decided to make that move, or at least that's what they're trying to signal to the United States. But we have more of the article here. President Joe Biden said Tuesday he's decided how the U.S. is going to respond to the drone attack on a U.S. base in Jordan by Iran-backed militants that killed 3 American soldiers. Have you made a decision how you'll respond to the attack? Biden was asked, leaving the White House as headed for fundraisers in Florida. I don't think that's a complete or grammatically correct sentence. That seems botched to me. Yes, he said. Retaliatory strikes by the U.S. so far have yet to deter any of these Iranian-backed groups in the region. Asked if this upcoming response will actually deter them, he said, quote, "We'll see." He reiterated, and this is important to the analysis and my gut reaction to this, what I'm going to say after I go through this article. He reiterated that the U.S. is not looking for a wider war in the Middle East, explaining, that's not what I'm looking for. The president wouldn't go as far as saying Iran is directly responsible for the attack, but that it is responsible for arming these proxy groups. I do hold them responsible in that they are supplying the weapons to the people who did it. The U.S. response to the drone attack will be... Twill? Man, this thing is full of typos. What are y'all doing over here at ABC News? Come on, fix this. This came out hours ago. You had time to fix this article. What is up with these simple typos? You're throwing me off. I'm trying to read this. Oh my goodness. The U.S. response to the drone attack will be carried out over the course of several days, striking multiple targets, a U.S. official told ABC News. These are going to be very deliberate targets, deliberate strikes on facilities that enabled these attacks on U.S. forces, the official said. Also on Tuesday, the Iran-backed Hezbollah brigades based in Iraq, I don't know, different from Iran-backed Hezbollah in Lebanon said it would suspend its military operations against U.S. forces in Iraq. Oh, by the way, that is the organization that claimed responsibility for this attack. So, I guess that's pretty much all that there is to the story. But I think that we want to focus on the main thing that he says here. He reiterated that the U.S. is not looking for a wider war in the Middle East, explaining that's not what I'm looking for. That's the key paragraph in this entire article. And that's because so many people, and this is not just in America, but around the world, are looking around and they're being like, man, this stuff in the Middle East has escalated drastically. One small attack is now involving at least 5 other nations in literal hot conflicts, right? In hot and referring to bullets, right? People are shooting at each other, dropping bombs at each other just because of one terror attack in the state of Israel. Does this mean that there is going to be a World War III? And to be honest, I don't have a complete answer for you. I don't know whether or not we will eventually be in some sort of World War III situation. But I do think it's important to take a couple of things in mind. First of all, war in the United States is extremely unpopular. It's not something that the American people are really on board with. Americans very rarely are marching out into the streets saying, more war, yay woo. No one's saying that. No one's saying, yeah, we think that, Northrop Grumman, they're goated. No one is running around saying that. We do not glorify, as a citizenry, we do not glorify and support the military, for better or for worse, and we don't glorify and support, Northrop Grumman or, all of these weapons manufacturing companies. Especially online, you see a lot of disdain for these groups. That is very, very important for the second point that I'm about to bring up. We are in the middle of the 2024 presidential campaign, right? This is a campaign between actually really two people, Joe Biden and Donald Trump, regarding, who's going to be the next president of the United States. If your whole point is that you're trying to garner support from the American citizens, the last thing that you should do is going on the warpath. That's not something that's been helping Nikki Haley. You can see that because she has had, maybe not abysmal, but certainly distant second place finishes when it comes to looking at the primary so far in the GOP. It has not worked in her favor. We have, I think, in our Discord, in our community online, the Bread Gang, one of our members is, he's leaning to the left, but he actually supports, I think, Jill Stein as a potential candidate to help us get rid of the tensions that have since bubbled up after everything that happened in October 7th. The main thing that people are saying is not how do we send our troops over to defeat Hamas, not how do we, carpet bomb all these terrorist groups that we have, by the way, antagonized by sending troops over there when they didn't need to be over there. This is not the thing that Americans are thinking. The things that Americans are thinking, and actually many of our allies as well, is how do we get things to de-escalate? How do we keep things from boiling over into becoming a World War III type situation? And so if you look at the populace, this is what we're thinking. The main thing we're thinking is we don't want World War III. We have people in my chat right now who are saying they are scared by the mere words World War III. Does a population like that, you think that they would respond positively to, say, Joe Biden declaring war on Iran? This is coming after we know that this terrorist group has killed American citizens. And even still, I don't think a lot of people want us to be going after Iran in some sort of formal military conflict. Now, all of that said, I think there are also a couple of important things to take into account. First of all, this does not mean that we will not have some sort of military response. Like this article points out, we've already been sending drones over there. We've already been having strikes, right? We already have military personnel there, as I've whined and complained about for months now. So it's not beyond the realm of possibility that we send more troops there in order to at least give them a slap on the wrist and being like, no, bad dog. that is very much a possibility. On the other hand, we also have to consider that if Joe Biden, now this is a very slim chance, this is probably not going to happen, but if Joe Biden wins the election come this November in 2024, he then has no incentive to listen to the Americans' cries of, oh, we don't want to be in a civil war. Why? Because ordinarily he'd be beholden to the voters, but there's nothing the voters can do now if he's already been reelected. So it's very possible that come December or January or February of 2025, that if things like this are still happening, that eventually Joe Biden, convenes with Congress and they declare formal war on Iran. Now, I don't think that's particularly likely because, midterm elections happen all the time in various states. So you're going to have a lot of representatives on the hot seat being like, oh, hey, why did you greenlight a World War III? That's not something that we wanted when we voted you in. So I don't think that we will really see that happen, but I just want to put it out there that it's possible that this could happen. And I think that we should not blind ourselves to this possibility. So are we going to have World War III? Again, I'm not entirely sure, but I will say that there's a very, very low likelihood that we would ever enter some sort of formal conflict by the end of the year. Now, it's very possible that we would send more troops or announce new missile launches or something, more drone strikes into Iran. It's very possible, but we will not enter some sort of formal conflict that causes a legitimate World War III anytime soon. The soonest that we're going to see this is the beginning of December of 2024, if not January, February of 2025. It's a long way off. There's lots of time for things to change. Things could simmer down for all we know by the time the summer's over. We don't know what's going to happen. But all I would say is stay tuned, honestly, because this is a very precipitous situation. Things could go very badly. Doesn't mean that they will go badly, but they very well could. So I would say keep an eye on how things are going in the Middle East.